In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delves into the current political landscape, focusing primarily on the contrasting campaign strategies of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. The discussion highlights Harris's avoidance of adversarial questions and her limited engagement with the media since becoming the Democratic nominee. Shapiro expresses frustration over Harris's reluctance to participate in debates, particularly her refusal to accept Donald Trump's challenge for additional debates beyond the one scheduled for September 10th. Shapiro criticizes the media for their complicity in shielding Harris from scrutiny, suggesting that they have become an extension of her campaign rather than independent watchdogs. The narrative presented is that Harris is being portrayed as a brilliant and capable candidate, despite evidence to the contrary. Shapiro argues that her campaign resembles a basement campaign, where she relies heavily on teleprompters and avoids direct engagement with voters and the press. This strategy is contrasted with Trump's approach, which includes holding press conferences and engaging with the media, even when faced with hostility. Shapiro points out that Trump has been vocal about wanting to debate Harris multiple times, emphasizing the importance of these debates for the American public to understand the candidate's positions. In contrast, Harris's campaign appears to be focused on avoiding tough questions and maintaining a carefully curated public image. Shapiro expresses disbelief at Harris's commitment to only one debate, which was negotiated by Joe Biden before she became the nominee, and questions the media's failure to press her on this issue. During a recent press conference at Mar-a-Lago, Trump outlined his campaign's focus on common-sense policies, such as low taxes, strong borders, and a robust military. He criticized Harris's record, labeling her as the worst vice president in history and highlighting the failures of the Biden administration. Shapiro notes that Trump effectively redirected the conversation towards Harris's radical policies and her inability to answer questions about her record. The discussion also touches on Trump's comments regarding the economic and security challenges facing the country, warning of potential depressions and global conflicts if Harris were to become president. Shapiro emphasizes that Trump's messaging should center on these critical issues rather than personal grievances or crowd sizes, which detract from the overall campaign strategy. The podcast highlights Harris's recent interactions with the media, where she has been evasive and noncommittal. Shapiro criticizes her for not taking questions from reporters and for only agreeing to a limited number of interviews. This lack of engagement is framed as a deliberate strategy to avoid accountability for her past positions and the policies she has supported. Shapiro expresses frustration with the media's failure to hold Harris accountable, suggesting that they are more interested in promoting her candidacy than in providing the public with the information they need to make informed decisions. The discussion includes references to various Democratic leaders, including Nancy Pelosi, who have defended Harris's lack of media engagement, further illustrating the disconnect between the political elite and the concerns of everyday Americans. As the conversation progresses, Shapiro shifts focus to Tim Walz, the Democratic candidate for vice president, and his controversial past. The podcast discusses allegations of misrepresentation regarding Walz's military service and his connections to individuals with extremist views. Shapiro argues that these issues could significantly impact Harris's campaign, especially in battleground states where voters are concerned about character and integrity. Shapiro points out that Walz's failure to address these allegations head-on reflects poorly on Harris's campaign and raises questions about her judgment in selecting him as a running mate. The discussion emphasizes the importance of transparency and accountability in political campaigns, particularly when candidates are vying for the highest offices in the land. The podcast concludes with a broader discussion about the implications of Harris's campaign strategy and the potential consequences for the Democratic Party. Shapiro argues that by avoiding tough questions and relying on a carefully crafted public image, Harris risks alienating voters who are seeking authenticity and transparency from their leaders. Shapiro expresses concern that this approach could lead to a backlash against the Democratic Party, particularly among independent voters who may feel disillusioned by the lack of genuine engagement from candidates.